Hello, and welcome to Creating Connections, Destiny Arts Center's series of conversations with community members. Tonight, we are discussing youth-led advocacy and direct action here in the Bay Area, and we have a panelist full of local folks who are going to tell us a little bit about some of the actions they've been doing and how we as a community can take action on a variety of issues that are happening right now in the Bay. Before we get started, my name is Shanna Bowie. I am the Arts Center Manager at Destiny, and I will be hosting this evening along with some other Destiny community members. The first person that I'm gonna ask to come up is one of our youth, Niaja. Are you ready? Can you turn your camera on? All right. Niaja is a member of our Destiny Arts Youth Performance Company, and she is also going to lead us in a meditation this evening.
Yes. Hello, my name is Niaja Robertson. Can we all just, get comfortable and close our eyes? Relax your bodies and focus on your breath as we breathe in and out. One more time, breathe in and out. Keep the center with your breath, your body. Take out any noises from outside or in your home. Focus on the insides as they surround your heart, your breath, your lungs. Imagine that you are in a forest by water and you hear the trees and the birds. The water's flow is the only calming sound that you hear. Breathe in one more time and out. Maintain that breath. Relax your body. And gently open your eyes when you feel ready.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Niaja, for leading us in that meditation. We're gonna talk tonight about direct action, and I think it's really important that we open with meditation and centering ourselves, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot to lead a movement. It takes a lot to be a part of a movement. And it's important that we're remembering our bodies, because our bodies are what holds this energy. It's what moves this energy. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you, Niaja, for leading us. I'm going to ask all the rest of our panelists this evening to turn on your cameras, and we're going to introduce ourselves. I want you to talk a little bit about your experience with advocacy and direct action, what organizations you represent. Let us know your name, your pronouns, where you're from, and why you're here. And I am going to start with, actually, let's start with Dinah.
Hi, my name's Dinah. You said my name, my pronouns, and what was the last thing you said?
Who you're representing and what's your experience with advocacy or direct action?
Okay. My name's Dinah. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm here with Youth Protect the Bay and Destiny Arts. I'm on the youth, oh my God, I can't speak. I'm on the dance team of Destiny. And my experience with like, oh my God, my brain is so scrambled.
With advocacy or direct action?
Yes. I also worked with Youth versus Apocalypse, so I've done actions with them and protests with them, and also being a part of now Youth Protect the Bay. We've been really having a lot of ideas, which super cool. And yeah, so that's mainly my experience.
Okay. I am gonna call on Georgia.
Hi, I'm Georgia. Yeah, I'm also here with Youth Protect the Bay. And my pronouns are she, her. And my history with like advocacy and activism. So, I mean, there's like a whole, like I was raised in the Bay, so like by like very active parents who have spent their life trying to like dealing with social justice issues. So I'm definitely like well trained in that. And I've always just had those conversations, had friends who are involved, gone to protests even when I was really little with my parents and stuff. And like the main conversation topic of conversation in my family is politics. So yeah, I've always just been like in it. And I have an older brother who's 17, and he's taught me a lot, and we talk a lot about politics, and he's the one who like comes in my room and is like ready to talk and explain things to me. So yeah, that's my history. And then with the camp, we Youth Protect the Bay hosted a camp out outside of Berkeley Police Department on July 13th, and yeah, I was part of that, organizing that, mainly to help push a 50% budget cut to BPD, which didn't actually happen, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's really everything.
All right. Ultraviolet.
Hi, y'all. My name is Ultraviolet. My pronouns are she and her. I'm here with Youth Protect the Bay as well, one of the co-founders. Honestly, before June, I would say, I haven't really been involved heavily with activist work. I've always been a dancer in the performing arts community. So that's always kind of been where I've, dedicated a lot of my time to more like arts-based community stuff. I went to Oakland School for the Arts for some time, and there's a lot of advocacy and activism there too, and art expression. But yeah, and then at the beginning of June is when I co-organized a protest with my lovely friend Shayla Avery over here and my friend Hadassah. And then from there, Shayla and I co-organized another one up in the Berkeley Hills, and then me, Georgia, Dinah, Shayla, and two other girls co-organized the sit-in at Berkeley Police Department. And so I've just been primarily, wanting to uplift the Black youth voices, and particularly the Black youth women who are organizing these things. So yeah.
All right, perfect segue into Shayla.
Hi guys, I'm Shayla. My pronouns are she, her. What am I supposed to be saying again?
Who are
My
you
history.
Representing and your history?
Yes. So I'm representing Youth Protect the Bay and also Destiny Arts Youth Performance Company. I have a little bit of experience in organizing now, I would say. I've organized, like UV said, I organized two with her, and then the most recent one with Youth Protect the Bay. And I'm also planning something new coming soon, so stay tuned. I started going to protests when I was younger too, but not so much, because I usually just would watch a lot of documentaries on like the school systems and racism, and my mom just had those conversations with me ever since I was little. So, but I'm just now getting into going to protests and organizing. Yeah.
And Rose. It's really hard for me to not like call Rose all my little like nicknames for her.
Hi, I'm Rose Hurd. I'm here representing Destiny Arts Youth Performance Company. Recently, I've also been working with Mocha on the Porch Talk series, facilitating conversations around race. And I've been leading a lot of conversations with white people about race, which has been a beautiful experience. Yeah, my experience with activism is, like Georgia said, I grew up in the Bay, so I've been close to activism my whole life. I was raised by and around activists. I've also been a part of Destiny for the past 11 years, and so activism and art go hand in hand for me, so I'm excited to be here.
Right. And Nyaja?
Hi, once again, I'm Niaja. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm also a Destiny Company member. As for activism and what was the question? I'm just gonna say I've been able to be kind of front line seeing and experiencing the protests and being getting to be able to take note and listen in and educate myself about different things that's been going on ever since this whole movement has started. A lot of that has been inspired by Shayla and UV. So being just there and expressing, I think in a way, my advocating in the protest has been a way of my like expression towards everything that's going on, along with dance and being in Destiny and dancing at those protests has been definitely an outlet for me. And yeah.
Cool. And then we have some of our adult advocates. That's what I like to call it, our adult advocates. I'm going to start with Ben.
Greetings to all. Can you hear me okay? Excellent, thank you. Well, first of all, I'm just so honored to be here among so many heavy hitters in youth leadership. So thank you all for the invitation. My name is Benjamin Lee. First and foremost, I am a upright bassist and electric bassist and artist based in Oakland. I am also teaching faculty at Oakland Public Conservatory. I'm also affiliated with the jazz program at Oakland High School, in addition to my private practice. My pronouns are he, him, and in terms of history with advocacy, similarly, I would say actually to some of these students, I'd say for me, it really started in high school for me, when I first had the opportunity to be a part of some facilitation groups, particularly for people coming from my positionality, similar to what Rose talked about, really taking heavy and impactful and important conversations into those white spaces, which, as we all know, is where they don't want to go. So that's been kind of, I think, where that started for me. Today, I'm showing up as a member of the Oakland Unified Arts Partners Group, and some of the work that they've been doing has been focused really around city budgets and kind of city politics at that level, trying to make sure that arts programming is receiving the funding that it should, and making sure that all the programs that actually do keep us safe and keep us well, both in mind, body, and soul, are getting the funds that they need. So like all these students, I feel like I'm learning every single day. I don't need to say that we are in a place of legendary activism. So I'm constantly trying to engage with my elders and the people who've been doing this for decades to learn as much as I can to inform our work as we go forward. So, yeah.
All right. And Kyla?
My name is Kyla Searle, and I was born and raised in Berkeley. I was in company 20 years ago, and went to Berkeley High, and have just been so inspired and moved by Youth Protect the Bay, the Stand with Black Youth actions, and all of the arts activism that's coming from this group of young women. I guess I represent Destiny because I've returned to the Bay and to Destiny. I will always represent Destiny, I should say. And I'm also an artist and a professor. And so I do think about my teaching work as part of my creative and activist practice. I've been involved in organizing and direct action my whole life, and my mom's an organizer. So yeah.
All right, so thank you for being here. And Sophie.
Hi, everyone. I'm super happy to be here. This plane is passing overhead at this very moment that I'm introducing myself. But yeah, so I work at Destiny Arts Center. I'm staff. I do communications and videography, media. And my engagement in the activism and direct action that's been going on in the last couple of weeks has been as a documentarian. I've been recording sound and taking photos and supporting in whatever way I can to be in solidarity with the Black youth organizers of this community, which, you know, are hugely inspiring to me, and I think push the community, myself included, to be accountable and take the action that's necessary to move toward our, you know, safety and equitable society. So I'm really excited to be here and to be in conversation with you all.
All right, so my first question, it's kind of geared towards the adult advocates, but also anyone can really answer this question. What do you think is the role of the arts in advocacy? And anyone can take that. If you don't take it, I'm gonna call on you. Ben, you wanna take that one?
Sure. Well, I think Rose spoke about that, and I think one of the other students spoke about, for me, they're part and parcel. They are fundamental sides of the same coin for me. And that's just based on what I would say is, what I try to get across to my students is a more complete understanding of what it is to be a musician and what it is to be an artist. And trying to get behind the stories of some of the legends that we study. Someone who I like to talk a lot about would be like Mary Lou Williams, who was a virtuosic 6-decade career, multiple Guggenheim winning person who mentored and taught a lot of the jazz musicians that we unfortunately hear about first without hearing about her. But what doesn't get spoken about a lot is all the work that she did for her community. And that while she was arranging for super famous people like Duke Ellington and all these types of people, she was also doing a tremendous amount of outreach in the community to support particularly musicians who had been caught up in addiction. And she started the Bel Canto Foundation, funded some of it with her own money that she made as a musician, and was doing a ton of stuff, both through her religious activism as well as through her craft. And so for me, I don't think you can listen to Mary Lou Williams' music without knowing that, because it helps inform our understanding of what you see when you actually get to listen to music. There's another person like Yo-Yo Ma, some of you might know, who's a very famous cello player, and he kind of likes to say that the music that you hear is the tip of the iceberg, but you don't get to see all the lived experience and all the work that's led to that one moment of performance that you're witnessing right now. And so for me, I like to think a lot about that and make sure that in my work, when I'm presenting the tip of an iceberg to a public or a school or a student, I'm bringing that full self that's gathering on all the other things that I want to get across when I'm trying to teach about this particular subject. And so for me, that's civics, right? How can we learn about a particular technique or particular style, but also learn about a particular form of advocacy that was practiced by the same person? And so again, as some of these students said, I think they're right on the money when they say that they are just part and parcel, part of the same thing and part of that creative fabric of resistance that we're all part of as we're kind of inventing this future together.
Kyla, since you talked about teaching and Ben was also speaking about that, how do you bring the arts and your advocacy or your social justice message together?
Yeah, so I'm a professor. I'm an arts professor. I work in script writing, drama, and communication studies. And so I'm constantly thinking about performance and also storytelling in my work as a teacher, as an educator. I think that, I mean, the arts does do so much. And like just being in the streets with this group of young people these past few months, or yeah, oh my God, it's been like 2 months now, you guys. There's been so much art, and I think that you know, it's an activity that that I mean, there's been these street murals that they've sort of led. There's been dancing in the street. There's been just the creative act of the story that each of these protests is telling, like walking down the Berkeley Red Line. That's telling a story. That's redirecting a narrative. And that's something that I think about as an educator, but also that I just want to uplift and kind of witness in terms of what the young people on this call have been doing. And so how do I connect those two things? I mean, are they disconnected? I think maybe that's the question, is people, how do you disconnect those things? And thinking about the arts as though they're separate from society just isn't something that I think really is very realistic. So maybe they're just always connected. I also think that the arts allow us to imagine the world that we want, not just to call out the world that we don't want. And so, you know, being in the street with a group of people who I want to be with, who are part of my community and who are all dancing together, that's the world I want to live in. So it's really amazing to be able to simultaneously protest and experience the world that you might be fighting for at once. If possible, I hope I do that as an educator, but definitely these young people on this call are doing that in the streets. So.
All right, so let's talk about it. Can y'all talk a little bit about the actions that you've taken recently and how art has been a part of those actions, or how art has also been necessary to those actions? And I'm going to call on Shayla.
Well, I guess it all started with the drummers at our first protest in Black youth. That right there just opened my eyes, just keeping the rhythm, like having the chant. First of all, the chants, I feel like that's an art in itself, because that's like music. Like that's, and like we've came up with our own chants. Me and UV literally like brainstorm chants we like that related to the topic we were doing, but also like how to keep people alive and upbeat and like just not get tired when walking, especially when we get them to walk up a hill in the North Berkeley. Like yeah, going back to the first protest, it all started with the drummers and just how they kept like the energy. It just is an energy shift when you see like people dancing along the streets instead of just like marching, you know? I don't really know how to explain it. What was the question?
How has the arts been necessary, or, you know, how have you brought it to
to keep the energy up. And also it's just, it's part of like the culture, the Black community. Like it's dancing, music, it's what we do. Drawing, it's like, that's how some of us express ourselves, you know? So you can't have, like Kyla said, you can't have one without the other. It's like they're all connected. So, yeah.
Cool. Anybody else want to speak to that? Because I know also the Youth Performance Company is currently working on a piece that y'all are filming. Do you kind of want to talk about that a little bit, and what the connection is to the actions that are happening right now?
I'm going to nominate Niaja to answer that question, since you've been doing such beautiful dancing in the filming, both at the protests and then, yeah, I think Shanna was talking about how these protests are being documented. They're being filmed, kind of like an art medium that's being used as a way to share it, perhaps with people that like aren't able to be there physically, or, you know, and that's also connected to the project, the Black Hole Project, that y'all are working on as a company. Um, and so how, experience like the both working on in streets and direct action, and then also telling this story artistically. What's the
For me, it's been a very personal experience, I think, being that like we are in the streets. Well, first of all, being a young Black woman in today's time from the Bay Area, I already go through my struggles on an everyday basis, but then being able to advocate and speak about them and be surrounded by people who are here to help and know my struggle and understand, I think has been very supporting and very uplifting for me. So when I speak into like my art and start performing, or say I dance somewhere, like when I danced at the protest, the last one, not the last one, was that the last one? Yes, the last one. For me, doing that dance, it was more of like a praise dance, soulful, very very personal, very what's the word for I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, okay. So back to how that connects with being with Destiny and the Black hole. I think because it's not a performance on stage and it's more like video, so they're capturing, it's harder to capture the emotion if you're not really like here, if that makes sense. So capturing it through video takes a certain type of feeling, a certain type of I don't know, like, I guess control over your body, control over your mind, that helps you connect with the camera so that you guys have that connection. Kind of going back to your question, because I feel like I'm very off topic. I'm sorry.
No, not at all.
No, it is
for that.
I don't know what to say anymore.
It is about a feeling. Like, that's the thing, is all of this, is coming out of people's need to like express themselves. So I guess my question for y'all is, how has being in the streets, organizing these actions, how has it allowed you to express yourself as young people, as young women, as artists? Yes, go ahead and unmute.
Okay. So, for me, okay. Whoa. It just flew in my head. Repeat the question one more time, and I'll come back.
How has organizing, being out on the street, allowed you to express yourself as young people, as young women, and as artists?
Oh, well, like, just like going back to like my thing is, I never tell people how to protest. So it's like, if they feel like they need to dance in the street, that to release that energy, then they can do that. If they feel like they need to scream and yell, then they can do that. If they feel like they need to bang on a drum, then they can do that. You know what I mean? I feel like for me, expressing myself is like talking in front of people, having these conversations with people. And that's something that I've been really like passionate about having incorporated in my protests, is having these conversations, having this space so people come up and say their stories, to listen, having these like difficult conversations that people don't like to have. I think that's how I express myself. And then also like my peers, like Neandra was saying, like dancing or drawing. Like Rose got together her people to put that big mural in front of Berkeley High that says Black Lives Matter on the street. That's the way they express themselves, to draw it out. Just, like, I feel like, yeah. Did that make sense? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I love how y'all keep asking if you're making sense. Yes, you're making perfect sense.
But yeah.
Yes, Dinah. And then Georgia, I see.
For me, it's been helping me just like think about what I want to do in my future, just because I've been sort of like teeter-tottering around like what I want to do. And I think like being involved with a lot of organizations like this has really helped me think. And like, it just helps me feel like I know where I'm going, which I think is really important for me. And like the dancing, especially, like knowing, oh my gosh, just like knowing that I have an outlet to express myself is really important, because I feel like sometimes people just don't have an outlet to do what they need to do to get certain feelings out. And it's like dancing just like really helps with that, I think. And that's like really important, is to be able to do that. I don't know where my mind just went, because I don't think that was the question at all. But yeah.
I love y'all. Georgia, and then Rose, I see your hand.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of just to add on with what everyone said, for me, it's like I've always been someone who's been like outspoken or like loud or like, you know, like very like I talk a lot. And also when I put my mind to something, like I will not let it go. And that annoys my friends in some way. It's a blessing and a curse, because I can like stick my mind on a topic. And I'm really good at arguing. And I've always been told like, you're loud, you talk a lot, like, you know, and like, I feel like this is where I need to be. Like, for me, protesting is my home. Like, to be able to like put my words together and say it to a crowd and say how I feel, and to advocate for people who might not be able to say it on a big platform like this, like that is so important to me. And also I'm young, like I'm only 14 and I'm the youngest in my like, you know, in my family and all that. So I've always been someone who's like looked at as like, not like, you're just a little younger, all that. But it's like, no, like I have things to say. And I think it's important to band together the youth and being like, we have something to say. We know, we see this world. It's our world. We have to inherit next. Like, and being like, this is what I need to say. So yeah.
Rose?
Yeah, I think, I mean, personally, I have always been the type of person to speak up when stuff is off or stuff is being said that is not right, and use my privilege in that way. And so, and that's just based off of where I grew up and who I was raised by. So I think during this round of the Black Lives Matter movement, and this much like media coverage that we're getting and all this stuff has been beautiful to see, but it's also been beautiful for me to be able to now use my art connections that I have to help in any way that I can. And so yeah, and I think as far as the black hole goes, going back to the other question, we were making a show based off of 6 Black lives that were taken too soon. And then we went into quarantine and it shifted into a film. And then the Black Lives Matter movement took off in a way that I haven't seen before. And we were really able to, we're living it. We're living the show that we were making. And so that's been very beautiful. And it's been very powerful and emotional to be a part of as well. So yeah, I don't know if that was the answer to the question either, but there you
go. The actions that y'all have organized have had very specific demands. Can you talk a little bit about the demands in terms of Berkeley Police Department? And then also, I know tomorrow, Oakland will be doing their budget votes. So can you, I know Ben, you've been involved with like Movement for Black Lives and stuff. Can y'all talk a little bit about what are the demands in terms of policing and the city's budgets? Anybody want to take that?
Sure. So for our camp out, I mean, I don't know about like all of them because like you'd have to ask Shayla and Yuffie, but for the camp out, so there was the next day there was supposed to be a vote on a 50% budget cut to BPD, which would be $36 million. And that's what we wanted to push. I mean, we want a full budget cut, but I mean, that's, you know, what people are ready to talk about. So we'll help talk about it. And I think it's important, like, as I said, as youth, to come with a demand, like, so we know, we look like we know what we do know what we're talking about. We know the rights, we know the rules, we know everything. And so we did. And also just not even to like push the council to vote on it, but to get people to see this is like in your own city. You can do something right now. You can listen into the meeting. You could call in. You could say, this is how I feel. You could talk to the mayor. You could do all of that. Like, it doesn't need to be like, oh, the White House and we have no control. It could be like on a smaller level, like our city, what I can do here and now. So our demand was, I mean, that, you know, there was a 50% budget cut, which actually wasn't passed, but we did. But I would say that it's a success in some ways, because we did get like a record, like the Zoom call went till 3 a.m. Like, we had a record amount of people on there calling in saying, this is what I want. And like the city was in full support of the 50% budget cut. And so like, just to even just bring awareness to like, oh, this is where, like, this is what's happening in my city, that I can just be like, spend my night calling in and saying, hey, vote on this. So that was our demand.
I can add on to that. For regarding demands, the first protest that me, Shayla, and our friend Hadassah organized, we had made a list of demands regarding our school in Berkeley High, because it's not just policing, it's the education system. And we've made demands just to basically change all of these institutions, reform and dismantle all of these institutions that are, you know, not giving proper education, not providing a safe place for students, specifically Black students, and things like that, not having enough representation of Black teachers, things like that, you know. So I'm sure Shayla can go into more of what like our demands were for the school and stuff like that. But, you know, a lot of it is just about reaching out to other students, other peers, and other Black youth, and hearing their experiences, hearing your community members' experiences, and then compiling that, seeing the patterns, seeing like what's emphasized a lot that people are missing, what our city council is not doing, what our principal isn't doing, what are, you know, things like that. Who's in charge and what are they not doing right? Or what are they doing too much of? And then you just kind of have to put all that to one source and then make a simple, like, clean cut demand out of that. But I mean, that's just kind of my piece on that. So I don't know, Shayla, do you want to add on, or? Okay, good. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, yeah, demands, like, especially though as youth, when you make demands, it's like a lot of adults think that youth don't put a lot of time into, you know, their thought process or what they really want or what we really want. And, you know, that's such a bad assumption, because we're the ones who are really trying to figure this out. We're the ones who have these resources. I'm in student government, I'm vice president. And so like, I know that I have to use my privilege, my resources, the people I have connections to tell them, you know, hey, we got to mobilize and focus on this right now. How can we incorporate it into our own community of 3,500 kids, you know? Like, it's just, it can start as small as that, if you count that as small. But yeah, it's just basically like, you know, coming together and listening to other people, obviously, and then making those demands. So yeah.
And y'all were also working directly with a council member. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? No.
Yeah, how did you get in touch with Cheryl to do that? And what was the experience of working with her?
Shayla, or okay, I mean,
I'll answer that. So I mean, I don't even, yeah. So how we got in touch with her, I'm pretty sure, oh, actually, we were just looking up like what's going on in Berkeley right now to see like what we could back. And we found her name and like her, you know, her proposed 50% budget cut. And so we were, you know, we stood we stood with that, and we wanted to stand behind that. and see if we could actually make that change. So that's like where we first got in touch. And then I guess Shayla probably just reached out to her, or UV just like emailed her or something. But I don't know. I mean, like, it's interesting because working with council members, like, is like, there's pros and cons, because a lot, like, there's been like things that we differ on opinion with Davila that's like come to light. And so I think that it's interesting. I think that it's important to like look at city council and look at your own council. But I also think it's like with protests, like I don't know. It was fun working with the council member in some ways. But on the other hand, like, I don't know if the next protest I'd do it again, if that makes sense.
Oh, wait. I just wanted to add one quick thing, because what Georgia said, like, I 100% agree with, and we kind of all dealt with this too, and we realized this is like, you know, when you put any kind of reliance on a political authority, like who's ever up higher, usually it's just more difficult, because, you know, there's somewhat of a disconnect between like older generations, especially who are in authority like that, and the younger generations. And while we're trying to mend that, you know, and create that connection, you know, what we kind of realize is adults who are heavily in these kind of, you know, councils, things like that, they have a different approach of going about things that's different from the youth, because, you know, we have a lot of energy and drive to just do what we need to do. And it's kind of, I'm not saying that adults don't do that, but it's just like part of a generational thing. And we really wanted to focus on like, how can we actually count on our own community members and our peers to take care of each other, to look out for each other, to mobilize this. But Cheryl Davila was very helpful in terms of pushing this, because she did voice a lot of the concerns of the community, for sure.
Okay, I love a good segue. That is going to segue me right into my next question, which is, we're talking about, you know, budget cuts to police departments and our community and what that looks like. And so my question for y'all is, what does community safety look like without police? And how do we build that within ourselves, understanding that our government might not always be the best avenue for that?
I think like this is like something I've thought a lot on. I think it's like no one in a community should be on the other side. Like no one's the threat, the criminal, the one who's here and we're there and we're trying to defend against this. It's like if you're criminal, like I feel like there's a big like thing of like trying to put a face on some type of criminal and like who's hurting this, and like criminalizing people in our community is doing nothing but hurting our own community. I think that community is about like there's money and there's all that and there's like, you know, economic issues and all that. But at the end of the day, I think it's about like the beauty of art actually, like in communities and like, you know, what everyone has to offer, because each person has a whole new thing to offer, a whole new idea. Like I'll be like thinking one way and then someone will be like, wait, I was thinking about it this way. And it's like a whole nother like perspective to look at something. So I think that like community safety would be about like the community's protecting the community. You know, the police shouldn't be an outside force that are like have guns and like pull people over and are like, oh, you know, you da-da-da-da and all that. I think it's like if we heal the people in our community and make sure that the youth in our community are brought up so they're not traumatized and hurt and all of that, then we wouldn't have the same issues that we have, like, you know, issues. And then on top of that, I think that like there's trained mental health professionals, there's all that. Police don't have any of that training, don't have any of that qualifications to help a community member. They're not helping anything. They're just escalating situations. They're just coming into a situation. They don't have that education because everyone who does something has been hurt in a way before, causing them to do that, you know? And so I think it's important that we have mental health professionals, people who understand the brain, people who don't carry guns and aren't threatening and have a threatening reputation, so people aren't scared when they're approached, rather like being like, okay, these people want to help me and I'm going to let them help me. So that's how I feel.
Yes, Dinah.
Hearing a lot of that really just made me think of like the thing, how the police aren't, I'm pretty sure they're not allowed to be by like Ousd schools, I'm pretty sure is what happened with that. Like there are no police with Ousd anymore, which I think is super important, because having a cop car around the corner me trying to just walk out and get food at lunch, I'm just like, what are you doing sitting here? Like, you don't need to be here. And I think that stresses out a lot of kids, but we don't need any more stress in our lives regardless, because we're in school. We don't need you around the school giving us more stress when our stress is about school. Like, you're just doing the most for no reason. So it's like, I think that's really important to keep in mind. And like, it's just unnecessary it's just completely unnecessary. Let me think.
To piggyback what Georgia just said, yeah, if there were no police and it was just the community, just like she said, it's people in the community that do different things that can help for different reasons. So if everyone works together and actually be a community and get things done, I feel like the police system and all of that goes on with the police, economics, and government, like, there's people that will work in those different areas, but if we're all working as one instead of against, we will get more things done. People will get better resources and help with different things. And I feel like it will be more organized and less life-threatening. Now, as to what Dinah says, I 100% agree. Why do we have to feel like we're captivated in a jail cell when we're at school, when we're just trying to get lunch? Like, there shouldn't be guard dogs and policemen walking our halls if we're just trying to go to our next class. I think that's what's also like screwing up the whole education system, along with just like mental health with us teenagers. Why do we have to feel encaved and like we're being watched, or we can't do this or can't say that, if we're just trying to have a normal, safe day at school? So there's a thin line between like just, being protected, because they're supposed to be there to protect and serve, but if we're being guarded like hound dogs and questioned or stalked or stared, it's very uncomfortable for me, at least, because I'm going to speak for myself, but it's uncomfortable for me, and it makes me feel like a suspect where I'm supposed to feel in a safe space. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
Sophie, before I transition into because we've got some good questions from the audience that I want to ask, I just want to know if you have any more questions along this. You are muted.
My bad. I was actually going to, now that we're talking about schools, I was looking at the question that just came in from Pablo. So I can just go ahead and read that out now. So this says, any suggestions for teachers who teach younger students about how to get them involved in activism and/or artistry, especially now during this time where students will be starting the year online, so connecting them to activism will be a different type of work?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
And within Berkeley High, there are smaller learning communities, and I'm a part of AHA, which is the Arts and Humanities Academy. And so throughout my high school career, activism and art have been instilled in my education, which has been a huge privilege. And so I feel like the way that they do it is they base every single lesson in activism and in art. And our teachers are passionate activists who work in the community to better it. And getting teachers in classrooms who are experienced in activism and who are not white is, I feel like, the first step, because white teachers can't teach about Black history in a proper way by any means. And so having artists and people of color, especially Black people, in the classrooms teaching the classes is what needs to be happening right now. So yeah.
Georgia, yeah.
For me, I mean, there's a few things, but one is like have those conversations. Like I think it's such a big part. Like I'm mixed, so like my mom like was like telling my white side of my family to like don't disacknowledge that I have like that I'm Black. Like you don't act like you don't know that. I think it's really important to have the conversation with the students. Be like have that conversation. Be like there is like this going on in the world right now, and what do you guys think on it? Let them outwardly speak. Let them like give their opinions without being like, oh, that's actually not proper grammar. Like, oh, like, no, just let them speak, let them flow, let them say, you know, this is what I think of this, and have that conversation with each other. And also with the arts thing, like never discourage a student from arts. Like I remember I was in 6th grade and I got discouraged from, like from a school, and because I didn't get in, and like I didn't ever start again. And like, that's like my biggest regret. Like never discourage them, never tell them, oh, you're not good enough right now. Like, no, they're young. You like, let them do it. If they're drawing in class, let them draw in class. If they want to write in a pink pen, let them write in a big pink pen. It's so important to let like kids express themselves and show, you know, like this is what I'm into right now, and just let kids be into what they're into and grow and change and learn without control, like, or like micromanagement.
Yeah, one of my favorite directors, Kevin Smith, he has the best quote about that. He says, it costs you nothing to encourage somebody, but it will cost them everything if you discourage them. So, we have another question.
Wait. I'm gonna go real quick.
Oh, okay. Go.
Okay, going back to what Georgia said, definitely have those conversations. But also going back to what Rose said, the thing is about Berkeley High, since we do have smaller learning communities, I'm in AC, I'm not in our house, so I don't have the same experience she has. I would say distribute those teachers around the school to make you have those conversations. I only have one teacher that's ever really like openly had that conversation with me, that incorporated arts, that let us freely do what we want in my whole high school experience. That's only one teacher. And like Berkeley High, it's like segregated. We don't have, not every student at the school has those opportunities. And the effed up part about it is I can't even take those AHA classes because I'm not a part of that small school. So I would say dismantle that system. I know that's kind of controversial with Berkeley High kids, but I don't like the small system school. I feel like it's not fair for one student to have one experience that I don't get to have, So just have more teachers that will be able to have those conversations and get rid of the small schools. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's actually all this opportunity in the fact that we are gonna, for most schools, at least in Berkeley and in Oakland, gonna be starting online, so now what is the difference between having 10 kids in class, if we're gonna be on Zoom anyway, why not let everybody listen in? Why not open it up to as many people as you can? We're in a time where we can actually expand the accessibility because we're all home. It's like, oddly, because we're all stuck in one place, we can now open up the accessibility to more people.
Could I add something real quick too?
Mm-hmm. And then Dinah, I see your hand too.
One thing I wanted to add was just, which again, there's so much wisdom being dropped. I hope all the notes are being taken because this is really, really amazing stuff. The one thing I wanted to mention was for more of an individual practitioner as an artist, because I know everybody on this call in some way or another is practicing their craft. But as has been mentioned, right now we're in a point of isolation, right, for community safety purposes in order to take care of our elders and our immune suppressed, among others. And one thing that I struggled with early on, and some of my students struggled with early on, I spoke to my elders about, is how do we structure how we engage with our craft now? For me, I'm an improvising musician, right? My entire life is built in community, in a band, right? I'm showing up for a dozen different projects with either students or others, and I've got 3 to 10 people in a room. I'm vibing, everybody's feeling it. That's the definition of what I do. And now I got no gigs, right? So now what is it to kind of reimagine how I engage in my craft and thus how I engage my craft and activism? And the one thing I wanted to mention is just making sure that we dedicate time, right? Like a craft is like a muscle, like anything else, right? We have to dedicate, like on a daily basis, if we can, right, a segment of time that's only for your art, right? And that strengthens that muscle, right? And that allows you to be more creative, expand your vocabulary, and be able to speak back to the world in all the ways that we want to. But it can be a hard thing, right? Because we get busy. Maybe you're taking care of people. Maybe you're taking care of siblings. Maybe you're taking care of elders. Maybe you're working still, right? It's easy to get distracted, but I think it's something I talked to a lot of young artists about, is like they feel like their art is something they have to put aside until they get their job done, right? That's the thing I'm trying to break. No, this is our job, right? This is our job. This is why we're here, right? To chronicle and tell these stories, right? And we have to dedicate time to that, even if it's not easy. You dig what I'm saying? So I just wanted to mention that and hope that all of the students, amidst all this incredible work that they're doing, still find time to come back and draw, or as you were mentioning, come back and dance for yourself, just for you, for nobody else. No cameras on, no Instagram posts, you know, just for the joy of it, to help refill your cup so that when you show up to the plate again, you're going to be ready to go. So I just wanted to mention that. So thank you for that.
I feel lightly called out, Ben, because I have not been practicing my art. I have not been working that muscle. Dinah, what did you have to say?
When I was hearing Shayla talking about like the small schools within her school, it really made me think of like the academies at my school, because I'm a part of race policy and law, and we're the newest academy at the school. So we're the least funded academy. So we don't get, and like we're the least known about, so we don't get all these opportunities that the health academy gets, because they've been here for 10 years. So they have extra money, so they can go on more field trips that like work with them, and they have more like scholarship opportunities and more like, what's it called? It's like they just have more opportunities in general because they're a more known academy, which I think is really annoying, because there's no teachers for my academy that teach any other class. So I'm in a history class with the health academy teacher. So I hear about all these health academy opportunities that I don't get. But it's like, I don't want those opportunities, but I want the same amount of opportunities. I find that really discouraging, seeing him walking around passing out all these papers with opportunities that they can have, but my academy doesn't get them because we're not as funded. And it's just like, why does it have to be like that? Like they get to go to hospitals and they get to have all these other after school opportunities and do that. But it's like, I would love to go to a courthouse and see how that really works, because that's something I really want to do. So it's like, how are you helping me by not giving me the opportunities I want to fulfill my future? And I just find that really messed up.
Another good segue. This question is from Noemi. How can we use art as a foundation for the process of reimagining policing and education? So how can we use what we do as artists to reimagine what policing, education can look like for us? Yes, Rose.
I feel like it's important to call into this conversation that as artists, we are creators. And so as artists that are also activists, we are creating the world that we want to see. And artists should be at the forefront of reimagining our world and the space that we live in. So yeah, that's all I have to say, but I just think that's important to call into the conversation.
I just wanted to quickly add on to that, because art is so liberating and it's unifying, and it actually teaches young people especially about culture, about love, about hate, about everything, you know? I mean, I'm not even in Destiny, and I know y'all touch on all these subjects. You teach kids about all these subjects. And it's like, you know, art, in a way, it is a statement. Art can include politics. Art can include, you know, talking about certain issues. Art can represent a kind of science. You know, art is science. I like to make that argument sometimes. There is direct connection between like all these different things with art. And it's like, I think expression, human expression, regardless of what you think that looks like. Activism is art in a way, maybe not as abstract because, you know, we're using the principles of politics and science, statistics, all these things we don't think are connected with art. But in a way, it's reimagination of something else that's not in front of us, and reimagining a world, a system, a place that's actually going to serve people and actually liberate people. So it's like, I think when every single person just finds and is educated like in an art form, whatever they choose, you know, because I truly believe every person will naturally call to some kind of human expression, right? And once every person connects with that, there's a sense of humanity that's brought back into them and it's brought back into us. And that actually helps us understand each other better, you know? So I think it's just kind of understanding that art, you know, as sometimes of a reputation it may have or a label it may have, it's like people really need to bring art into science, into politics, into all these things, asking the meaning of it all, because in the end, it's all connected, you know? It's all supposed to connect us. I don't know. It's just, it is the foundation already, I feel like, you know? And we just kind of have to reinforce that vocally. Yeah.
All right. We have another question from Farhad. As you've all expressed and shared, it's important to have this conversation with those around you. How do we share conversations like this with younger youth or younger children?
I think it's important. Like, I had an 8th grade teacher, and she was my 8th grade history teacher, and she read straight from this book called The Lies My Teacher Told Me. And I think that it's like really important to like, I think there's like this like idea. I always thought like when I was really young that like school was always right. Like they wouldn't lie to me or whatever. And there's that whole like, oh, this person would never lie to me. Oh, school. Oh, the government would never lie. What? That doesn't seem right. The government legally can't lie, you know, all of that. And it's like now looking back, I'm like, ooh, but like, I think that's important to be like, look, like, I mean, it's a hard conversation to have with kids, like really young kids, because there's a lot of hope and like in the world and stuff. But I think it's like important to be like, I don't know, like you shouldn't always trust what your teacher's telling you, what your government's telling you, what, you know, what books are telling you, what media is telling you, what Disney Channel's telling you. It's like, there's like, you have to like look that there might be an ulterior motive. And I think that like, while like when you first hear that, like that's like soul crushing. Like for me, I'm like, what? Like, but I actually think it's liberating in the end, because it's like, you have that, you know, that's your knowledge. You now know you have that liberation of knowledge and of education. And like that idea, the idea that education gives you freedom, like real education, and like art gives you freedom and all of that. And art, I mean, for me, I think art's intertwined with like science and all that, because it's just about understanding the world from your point of view, from your eyes. And so, and trying to show others, this is how I understand the world. And like all of that, that's so liberating. And like, it's so important to not listen. I mean, not listen. Okay. In some situations, yes, listen, but always question. I'm a very strong questioner, and I think all authority should be questioned. I mean, it doesn't mean it needs to be teared down, but at some point it should be questioned and be like, do we think this is right? And what can we do to change this? How can we improve this? So that we don't get to this moment where like authority is stuck 100 years in the past, you know? So.
Anyone else want to speak to that?
I have a question. It's kind of a an expansion on a question we have from Beatrice from a little while ago, where she asks, do you have any tips or resources for young people who are starting to organize? Which I think we've addressed in some ways already. But I think, you know, one thing that I've observed from these actions that you all have organized is that there is this, it's such a full experience. There's so much integration of the arts and spoken word and expression and music and dance and rhythm and everything that you're talking about in support and next to these very concrete, tangible things you're giving people to do. Like I think at every single protest, at the DHS protest, there was a list of demands. And then at Pay Your Dues, you passed out those papers for people to support Black businesses and resources. And then again, you know, at the city council, at BPD and advocating for city council. And I think, you know, to me, like, what that says to me is that the arts are being used as strategic tools for change and to activate people and literally move people to action. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. I mean, you're obviously organically integrating those things. How do people who are starting out to organize, you know, what is that research process like when you're like, what are we actually asking for here? You know, what do we want to see change?
I mean, oh wait, sorry.
No, I saw your face. I was like, ready to go, let's go.
Okay. Yeah, I have a lot. Well, I only have a lot to say about this because I've seen other people try to organize. But see, I saw some young, like, white people trying to organize on their own. That's already a huge thing. I just want to make it, I can start off with what not to do. I want to tell the youth what not to do, the white youth particularly, because, and in general, like, it's not our place to start these things on our own, because with that, we're already pushing our own personal agendas, our own personal things. And it's like, this is not about us, and this is time for us to step up and step back. And that's why I've always let Shayla let me know what she wants to do, what she wants to make happen. She said, UV, I want to take it to the hills. She literally said that to me after our first protest. And I said, we're going to do that. And, you know, with organizing too, it's kind of just thinking about, like, what resources you already have and what connections you already have. Shayla, she had connections to Destiny and Yo, who documented all of our protests, and Kyla, who helped with our flyers, and, you know, and all this stuff. And I had connections to leadership in the school and redoing my research and all that, like, you know, and then there's, like, you know, people who follow me. Even, you know, social media is so powerful right now. It's such a tool, right? And so it's like, who are the connections? Who's the community that you already have right now? How can you just literally go on an Instagram live and say, hey, we're organizing this, y'all better come, this is what we want. And you know what I did? The first protest that me, Shayla, and our friend Hadassah organized, me and Shayla were on the phone. I opened up a Google Doc, and she just started voicing, because I told her, just like, voice everything you're feeling. What are your thoughts right now about everything going on? I sped typed that. I sped typed it all. I'm like, okay, bam. It was messy. It was not lit. Like, I was messing up all the typos and stuff, but literally it's just recording everything that, you know, that we truly feel, that Shayla, or, you know, the Black youth organizer, they feel what the person really feels, just kind of like putting that down somewhere and then saying, okay, so what can we actually do? Who can we access? Who can we change? Whose minds can we change, right? Like, who do we have direct connection to be like, okay, we're going to hold these people in our community accountable, right? So it's just kind of like starting off with recording out your general thoughts about it, like having a conversation. And then from there, you're like, okay, let's tackle this area. Because again, I think it's like, I'm reminded by all this, you know, it's like, it's everything in our world right now. It's every system. So we kind of have to think, okay, like, it's like thinking big and then thinking small, rather than thinking small than thinking big, because sometimes that's not always productive. So sometimes it's just like, okay, having the whole conversation, having a 3-hour phone call, and then being like, Okay, so you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna contact this person. I'm gonna do this. Okay, so next week we'll host a protest and we're gonna hold the school accountable, hold the police accountable, hold the white, rich, privileged, quiet people up in the hills accountable. You know, it's all in areas. And that's just kind of how I see it, is like, you know, think big, think small, and then, you know, it'll eventually, it'll work itself out. And use your connections, really important too.
Okay, I don't know if anyone else, but just also going off by that, yes. And also, what are you trying to teach? What are you trying to say? Like, come out like with a clear, because like you said, those 3-hour conversations, it could go everywhere. And with me personally, it goes everywhere. And UV always has to remind me, okay, so what are we doing? Like, what is our focus? Like she said, what are we like zoning in on? What are we like? All of our protests, well, all the protests that I've organized, I've made sure that we had a topic we are trying to cover, like the school system, how she said, the school system, the police system, and then redlining, gentrification in Berkeley, the history of that. And then also when we just like holding these, like she said, holding these rich white people accountable, because when we walked the route for that protest, we literally saw them just picnicking, talking about a haircut. Like, wow, okay, as we're sitting next to them talking about our protest that we're organizing right there. And also, I would just say, because it could be intimidating, like just like asking for that help, asking, like reaching out to those connections. It could be very intimidating. And I would just say, take that leap of faith. Do not care. Look at the bigger prize. Don't care about whatever comes in between. Think about what you're going for, what your goal is, because that's what keeps me pushing. Because sometimes it is hard, like getting up in front of people, speaking, or reaching out to this person and just being like, hey, I need like advice. I need your help with this, you know? But like, don't think about that. Think about the bigger prize. We want to dismantle what we want to have. We want to tackle who, like, what are we doing, you know? Like, keep that, like, keep your eye on the prize, because it can get discouraging, but like, and also talk to your, like, have these conversations, talk to your community, because you never know who like has the same idea as you. Like literally, like I could go back and say how me and UV even got connected. Like it literally started off of me just being on the commissioner of arts on leadership, and her having like her like mentioning to someone like, oh, maybe we should do this, and I reached out like, I have that same idea, but let's see what we could collab with. Like, and just going back to the arts thing, our first original plan was to put a mural on Berkeley High and have the students do that and have these conversations. And also we knew that it was going to take a long time, so it would be like a school, like a whole year round thing, you know? So when we get discouraged, I could also keep the conversation going about these faces that we want, about these names that we're writing. Look them up. Like if you see one that you don't recognize, that could be a conversation right now. Ask the person who's drawing the face, who is that? What's their story? You know, have these conversations. But yeah, that's something I would like to say. Keep your eye on the prize. Don't get discouraged, and have these conversations. Reach out to your community, because you never know what they're thinking, because someone else, I guarantee you, has the same idea as you, and you guys just need to connect.
Yeah, I agree. Like also like okay, like if you're really just trying to start get into organizing, like find you a person like Shayla or like UV, because like they're 2 years older than me, and like having that group of people where you don't even need to be organizing a protest. Like you could just be like, I need to talk, call them up and be like, look, this is what's going on in my brain. Like having these long, like hour, 2 hour, 3 hour long conversations about what problems you see, what you've experienced, and just having those people to be like, this is who I can go to talk to me and like work it out with me. Like, don't try to take it all on alone and be like, I'm going to do this protest alone and do all of this. I mean, like, if that's what needs to happen, if you live in a super like you know, conservative white neighborhood and you're a white kid and you're like, look, this is fucked up, or freaked up, go sit in the street and be like, I'm making a statement, you know. But if there is Black youth around you and there is people you could talk to, go talk to them and be like, hey, I need to talk, like this is the idea I'm having, would you want to collab, would you want to speak, would you want to be part of it, would you want to dance, sing, do any art, would you like to have that space to talk? And like, I just think that's so important, because I mean, also just like learning from people who are older than you, because I'm, you know, young, and like, you know, Shayla and UV and like everyone that I've met has been older than me, and like calling them up and just being like, hey, this is what I've been thinking. And they already thought about this stuff because they, you know, they're older than me, and they've been like, yeah, well, what I think of it is this. So I think it's really important to find that group, find those people that you just like love and you really like respect and are on the same level with.
Yes, Dinah.
When Georgia was saying like talking to people older than you, I talk to you, Georgia, and you're younger than I am, and I've learned so much just from you. And I think being able to have an open mind and not really like only having one thought in your head, because that's gonna get you completely blocked. Like be open to hearing other people's thoughts and ideas and their point of views, regardless if you don't agree. You still need to listen and hear about what they're saying, because maybe that's a conversation that you can have with a bunch of other people, because some people just aren't open or ready or have the outlet to have that type of conversation. So I think it's really important to be completely open and like accepting of other people's thoughts and ideas.
I think it's also important as white youth to understand our place in the movement and understand how we can productively contribute to the movement, and understand that this is not the time to have your voice heard, but this is the time to amplify the voices that need to be heard and amplify the Black youth voices, and still contributing in the ways that you can. And so offering that support, if you have connections that will be helpful or useful, or just like supporting emotionally and showing up, just adding your body and putting your body on the line, because that is what we need to be doing as white people. We need to be if the police show up, we need to be standing in front of the Black youth, and we need to be standing in front of the Black people, because that's what we need to be. We need to be using our bodies and our privilege in this movement. So I think it's important, if youth are starting to become interested in organizing, and if they're white, understanding first and foremost what their position is in the movement.
That I think this will lead me to our final question, is how can adults, organizations, how can we be supporting and pushing what you're doing? Because we want to, you know, not be centering ourselves in this. Y'all are clearly intelligent, clearly have power. So how can we be supporting what you're doing?
I would say the top thing would be to really listen with an open mind, open heart, hear what we're saying. You don't always have to understand it right then and there, but just keeping that open mind, because being with young voices, and I'm going to move away from my mama because she's talking so loud. I'm sorry. Okay. Hearing young voices and seeing the difference of how, because this generation has changed so much, I think that hearing young voices and being able to not maybe understand, but just hear what we have to say and take it like, oh, okay, aha moment. We know what's going on here. We know which ways to go, how to navigate, especially through social media and people we can get in contact with like that. Like, it's so many resources that like, not your generation didn't have, but maybe like yours before and before that were maybe harder to get to. We now have that at the tip of our fingers, and it's easy access, and we know what we're talking about, to the point where it's like, if you already block out what we're saying, or don't give it an open mind, don't give it a second thought, it, one, discourages us, and two, then it just leaves like doubt and just not going forward anymore. So I think listening to the youth would be a really big thing. And yeah.
Anyone else?
Go for it, Shayla.
This is really like this might be the same thing Niaje, but not like, maybe not really, but like trusting us too. Like, yeah, what she said, like, don't shoot down our idea. Don't say, well, this already happened. Where it's like, I'm going about it a different way, or I have this idea. Trust what I'm saying. And just like the saying that I hear at Destiny a lot is trust the process, and that goes for everything. Trust me, trust my process, trust what I'm saying, trust what my idea that is going to work. Because we have to, it's like what she said, like as much influence you guys have over us in a way, it's like it could discourage me a lot hearing like, oh, well, that's not right, or like, oh, maybe do it this way, or it's already been done. Well, obviously I know stuff has been done before, but it's like what I'm saying, trust what I'm saying. You're not listening to me. You're hearing what you want to hear. Do not hear what you want to hear. Listen to what people are telling you. Listen to what I'm telling you, you know? Because like she said, we have all these different resources. We have all these ideas. And since we are all artists on this call, at least, you know, we have different ways of thinking, and we have different views on how we want to go about things. So just trust us, like really put your faith in us. And that could be a lot, you know, but like, I would highly recommend that. And that's the best way I could feel supported, is just to know that you guys are actually paying attention and trusting what I do is right.
I realized I was muted. Yes, Dinah.
For me, like what I keep saying is like, it's my future. So like knowing that you're not always gonna be here to pick up all the pieces, and it's like that we need to learn from our mistakes, regardless if it works or not. You need to let us learn and let us realize, okay, maybe I should have gone about it another way, but that's just a lesson that we have to learn. And I think just letting us know that it's okay to make mistakes, because I think that's a big thing that I hate. Like, I hate messing up. So I will ask questions on top of questions. I will have 21 questions for you, and I'll have even more. But it's just like, knowing that it's okay for me to ask questions and that it's okay for me to mess up is really important. That like, and you're still gonna be like, that you're still gonna be sticking by my side even if I do mess up, and you're not gonna be like, oh, see, I told you, you should have done it a different way. You're wrong. Like, no, like that makes me, like that discourages me. It's like, okay, well then I'm just gonna stop trying. Like, I might as well just stop. Like, I think that is really important to know.
Yeah, Georgia.
Also, like, I mean, just for our generation, like we're growing up in a, like, you could say a crazy time. So, like beyond like the crazy, like my dad was always like, oh, every generation had something. And then the other day he was like, I take that back. Like, you guys are by far have the most. And so it's like, look, like I get this, you know, we're both here on earth right now, but like, I like something I say a lot is like, I was born 14 years ago. I barely remember the 50% of my life. I don't remember it all. And I'm coming out looking at the world from these fresh eyes. I don't worry about my, you know, the economy or money or whatever. I'm not worried about that. All I'm looking at is like, from like, okay, what is happening right now? And like, my heart goes out to people who are in pain and who have injustice that I can see, you know? And I think it's important to be like, for the adults, just be like, okay, like I hear that. I hear what you're saying. And like, register that we know what we're talking about. We know, I see this, I'm seeing these people get hurt. I'm like, you know, I'm growing up in a pandemic. Like, I understand a lot about the responsibilities I have for the people of the world, and not just about me. Like, you know, I want to go hang out with my friends. I want to go do whatever, but no, I have to take that responsibility of the world to, you know, stay in the house, quarantine, wear a mask, all of that. Oh, I don't want to, you know, constantly be, I mean, I love organizing protests, but I don't want to constantly be organizing protests, putting every single second of every day my whole body and mind to that cause. But I am, because I have responsibility to someone beyond me, beyond just what I want to do, beyond, oh, my, you know, I want to actually redo my room and you know, go to a good college and get super good grades and all that. Like, it's beyond that for me. It's about the whole world. I have a responsibility to the world, because generations before us didn't take responsibility for the world, climate change, everything. It's so much. And it's like, that is now our responsibility. So like, sit behind us. And when we need protection, when someone's like, these are youth, they don't know what they're talking about, just like how white allies do, like step up and be like, actually, you should listen. Like, actually, they do know. like BPD was trying to get us in legal trouble and adults stepped up to try to help us and be like, look, and stuff like that. People who are lawyers, people who have that education and did that already, step into the front lines and be like, actually this, and then step back and then step up and step back and step up, and listen and all that. So I think that's important.
I just wanted to add on to Georgia's real quick, because everything she said about taking a step up and step back is so important. I feel like there are a lot of larger organizations that are run by these adults, and when they want to help out young people, they want to press their own campaigns, their own organization, their own political agendas, and they totally override and disrupt and infiltrate what the youth is actually trying to do, because they don't really hear the youth out on that. It could be just a generational thing, but at the same time, it's just like that's why, I really get skeptical when other higher political organizations run by adults want to help, because it's like, well, how? Why? Like, why do you truly want to help? Is this for your own gain, for your personal gain, or is this to actually amplify Shayla, Georgia, Dinah, Niaja, amplify their voices and what they actually want to see? I think it's just like, I think maybe there's a little bit of like, I don't want to say ageism, but it's like Georgia was saying, adults want to claim like they know more than us. They live more, they know more, they know what to do, they know the practicality. And it's like, it gets frustrating, because that's what disconnects us. That's what actually, infiltrates the real movement and the message. And that's why I just get skeptical too. And that's why it's like part of mobilizing community members and only community members. And so as adults, it's really about like, again, using the resources you already have when asked, and present an idea, and understand too that if that's not really what we're about or what the organizers are about, then that's okay. And if you still show up to help us, that's what we want. That really shows. And if you decide to go away because, we're not going to promote your name, your brand, your organization, whatever, it's like, you have to kind of ask yourself why, and what our causes, what their causes, so it's really just like Georgia said, and all of them said, it's just about like stepping up, stepping back, listening, and only using the necessary resources and connections that you have and a shield, and that's it.
It's so interesting hearing y'all talk, because all of the things that you're discussing, just for me as someone who works in youth development and someone who really is about developing youth leaders, that's the principle of it. Like, being okay with y'all failing, giving you support, stepping up and stepping back. Like, those are the principles. That's the foundation. That's how you build youth leaders. So, you're saying it, we're trying to practice it and having these discussions and amplifying your voice. So I just really want to thank everyone for coming together and having this discussion this evening. We are also going to be doing another discussion Thursday night. We're going to be talking about the practice of consent and what consent looks like in the time of COVID, and how we interact with each other, respect each other's boundaries and bodies. So that'll be another discussion. Next week, we're going to have a group of global youth activists. We're going to have folks from the UK, from Brazil, from India, talking about what youth activism looks like around the world. So I just want to invite people to continue to join us for these discussions, continue to listen, continue to support the movements that these young people are leading. And yeah, thank you. Appreciate you. Love y'all. Miss your faces. All right. Yes, join us Thursday at 5 for our next Creating Connections conversation.